So what else?
So I've kind of covered the format of how I do the public information request.
Okay.
Let's kind of go over now what happens when they don't want to give up the information.
And you've experienced this as well?
I have experienced it as well. So speaking at the conference, like you said, Jeff, you want to try and talk to IT, and maybe this is not something that they do. Okay, well, find out what they can do and what they normally do.
Yeah.
Now, there are going to be some recalcitrant individuals that you're going to deal with in getting public information requests. Key things to keep in mind: if they're going to do any programming or they're going to do any research or whatever, they first have to let you know that they're going to do that and present you with a cost report. Like I said at the beginning, public information requests are for information and data that already exists. So if they don't provide you with basically an invoice, for lack of a better term, and then they're like, hey, we got you all the Title 4D expenditures by Taran County, speaking maybe from experience, then if they've already produced the work, it exists.
Right.
So they can't charge you for it.
Yeah.
Now, this is where the OAG is actually our ally. I know there's a lot of hate for the Office of the Attorney General, but it's more than just the Child Support Division. It is a large part of it, but there's the Public Information Office. And
They had, 1,100 employees in that? Is that what I heard them say?
I think it was pretty
large. It was very significant.
It's not the sexy side of the OAG.
Right.
The one that brings in millions upon millions of dollars for the state.
Right.
But it's still a vital part, and we as private citizens need to use it.
Right.
So what you can do is actually you can go to the Office of the Attorney General and basically file a complaint that somebody is not in compliance with the Public Information Act. And then the Office of the Attorney General goes, they review your records, what you've asked for, and you have to note to them that, hey, I asked for an exception for this, you've already done the work, whatever you think. Or maybe it's a legislator's office that provided information before, like say Chairwoman Victoria Neave of the Juvenile Justice and Family Issues Committee, and then is refusing to provide that information in the present. So you need to let them know that, hey, I asked for this information, they either didn't promptly produce it, they're overcharging me, whatever is covered within 552, and then the Office of the Attorney General will issue an opinion. Very specifically speaking on Tarrant County, I had requested information about their Title 4D funds, and they did the work, they did the programming, and wanted to give me like a $300-something bill. I'm like, nah, information already exists now. You can't bill me for what you didn't ask if I'd be willing to pay.
Yeah.
So the Office of the Attorney General weighed in on it and basically said, oh, they can charge you a small processing fee. So I paid about 10% of what they wanted, and I was more than happy to provide that to them.
Right.
And then I got the information I wanted.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that you talk about these things, because sometimes you have the canned reports, but I know when I was in a reporting function at work, it was very easy to actually create very specific reports. I mean, they would want to tell you, well, it's going to take all this time to do it, but sometimes it's click this button, this button, this button. And well, a minute later, you have your report.
Well, I mean, you think about it. Any sort of state agency is going to want to be real careful about what information they put out there, which is another point that they brought up. They cannot ask you what purpose that you're going to use this information for.
So you didn't even tell them that. You just want
I want this. I want to know how many Band-Aids, the Texas Veterans Commission has given out in 2019. They can't ask you why you're asking about how many Band-Aids they gave out.
Yeah.
And so you take this information, and this is what you as citizens need to do. You need to start becoming educated yourself on whatever it is you want. In our case, obviously, Jeff and I are very concerned with family court reform, and the OAG tracks a heck of a lot of data, and I probably can't even think of all the stuff that they do. Other things you can consider is asking for raw data. That way they don't have to do programming. I haven't done that yet, but...
No, wait, I thought you did that with that one spreadsheet.
Oh, well, I mean, they had already compiled it. It was a report they ran.
Gotcha.
But I had to convert it from PDF to Excel. I had to have a friend help me with that because the PDF was worthless.
Yeah, and that's what they said. That was one of the complaints that some of the journalists had, is that when they give us the PDFs, they could not use them the way that they wanted to. So that was...
When you get documents that are not PDFs, for example, Excel files, one of the things you need to start going through, anybody who's getting those documents, is you need to go through and see where the cells are referencing. I found in a couple public information requests I've asked, they reference other files. Well, I don't know what that file is, but I really want to know. So I'll follow up with a follow-up public information request saying, I want to know that the amounts you released in public information request 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in cell C30, you reference a file. I want that file.
They've got to do it.
They've got to do it, and they can't ask why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, in my experience, like I said before, a lot of the people are just a regular guy.
Right.
And it really, you want to build a relationship with them.
Right.
You want to be positive. So if you say, hey, I'm interested in family courts, you know, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened today when we were talking with these people. We talked about various things, and they asked us what we were down there for. Because once again, we were the only two people, perhaps, in the entire conference that were not either attorneys or reporters.
Yeah.
And we got to talk about some stuff, and I always have to make sure that I'm not talking too much. But they seem very interesting, very engaging. And they seem very receptive to some of the ideas, some of the things that we were talking about.
Yeah, we were just two regular Joe Schmoes out there. And actually, I guess the director, Miss Shannon Kelly, I think her name was.
Okay, yeah.
She was very receptive because she said they're not used to having regular citizens involved in this.
Right.
So one of the things that I think we took away from that is they also offer guidance. So if you have questions, you can call this group.
Yeah.
And then they can help provide you with guidance. Now, they're attorneys. They won't represent you or anything like that, but they can give you guidance on public information requests. And they also mentioned that they offer trainings for people to learn about the public information request process.
I was going to ask you about that, so go ahead and continue on.
Yeah, so I would highly encourage anybody who has a group of people. I'm looking at you, Texas 2503.
Yeah.
You might want to schedule a meeting with them so you can get several of your members there so we can start doing those requests for local police departments. And once again, narrowly tailor your data. So one of the big problems I've seen is people get large data sets.
And they don't know what to do with it.
One of the things I want to explain is something that'll help you is figuring out what year the government agency operates on. So as many people may or may not know, Texas operates on a September to August state fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're requesting data and you're like, well, I want from January to December, that's not going to line up with the state. Even the state legislature is probably thinking, especially when they do the either House Bill 1 or Senate Bill 1, the budget bill, they're thinking in state fiscal years. Mm-hmm. So if you go to them and say, well, I want to know how many Band-Aids the Texas Veterans Commission used in state fiscal years, 16, 17, and 18. Mm-hmm. We'll just pull them, we'll use those 3 years.
Right.
Then you go to the commission and say, I think they're not giving out enough Band-Aids. In these fiscal years, they gave out, 5,000, then 4,000, then 3,000. So there's a downward trend. That's another thing to think about. Not just having a single year, but trying to show a trend.
Right.
Which comes usually, I'm no data scientist, but I've heard generally 3 years is a trend.
Yeah. So, when we're talking about these things, I mean, when people have done FOIAs, I've usually relied upon you, or you've told me about a FOIA or whatever, or if I'm thinking about one, I'm like, I've got to go to Taran and talk with him about it. But this is something that what I got from today's conference, and you might want to comment on this, is that this is something we need to be able to do. Like, say in every city or whatever, every group, we have a core group of people, and we can work together, and we share amongst each other. Mm-hmm. Because this idea that we're going to just hoard it to ourselves, That's completely wrong. That's what you're acting like a government person at that point.
Yeah.
You need to be open with your data if you have.
I would say an army person at that point.
Well, yeah. Anyway, I thought it was very good because we have the ability to do that, and I'm working in one area, and somebody might be working in a different area, and you're working in this area. So you know what? We share the data amongst ourselves, and we don't have to have one person just overburdened. I mean, somebody used to say don't have one person do the work of 10 people. Have 10 people do the work of 10 people.
Well, and I would say that's another key thing that I've noticed. So for those of you who have not heard of Pissed Off Parent, he's actually developed an app. So
Right.
Dwayne Ward has developed an app which serves as a clearinghouse for a lot of information. So for all of those of you who want family court reform in Texas, I highly encourage you download his app,
Yeah.
and it has all the statistics there. It has 2503 data, it has custody, it has all sorts of stuff, and it's a clearinghouse. The data is going to be essential for you to make your argument.
Right.
One person, well, they got screwed. 1.5 million. Now, them some numbers we can talk about.
Right, exactly.
So, I'm mentioning a lot of people because like you were saying, Jeff, we all need to come together. We need to share this information.
Right.
And you need to have it at your fingertips. And I'm more than willing to help anybody who has questions about
Yeah.
my processes I've
Yeah.
used.